Hello, my name is Landon McDaniel, and I am a part of Group 2, presenting on the heavily debated topic of the expansion of DNA databases from the perspective of the wrongfully convicted seeking exoneration and those who have experienced a breach in secure information on the internet. First, I'll outline the key arguments from the perspective of the wrongfully convicted. We've all been blamed for something we didn't do, maybe from a parent, a sibling, an employer, maybe even a teacher. Ask yourself, how far would you go to prove your innocence? That will put you in the frame of mind of those serving prison time for a crime they didn't commit. We know from basic biology that everyone is made up of a unique code called DNA that is in every single cell of our body. We easily and involuntarily leave behind traces of our DNA everywhere we go. According to an article in the Brooklyn Law Review, the FBI created a national database called CODIS to help collect and store DNA for future comparison and analysis. The article explains that these genetic profiles come from processed offenders, crime scene samples, unidentified human remains, and missing people. Even though our DNA is unique, we are passed down from specific genetic markets. This means that DNA can be used to find familial matches or people who are related to the person of interest. One example is the case of Leonard Mack, who spent 47 years convicted of rape before a DNA match caught the actual offender, according to a 2023 article published by the CNN Wire. This is the exact type of experience that shapes the perspective of expanding DNA databases can save innocent lives and strengthen the justice system. For the wrongfully convicted, DNA databases offer a clear truth during trial and the opportunity at freedom and redemption. Without forensic data, juries are left to evaluate circumstantial evidence provided by law enforcement, misidentification and misinformation from witnesses, and unfortunately, racial profiling that can lead the narrative. According to a 2013 article in the George Mason University Civil Rights Law Journal, DNA's ability to exonerate the wrongfully convicted have increased the use of DNA databases in every state. There have also been organizations created, like the Innocence Project, to review old convicts' DNA evidence working with the wrongfully convicted to earn their freedom. In a 2023 study published in the Forensic Science International, it was found that 95% of the U.S. population were in support for investigative genealogy to identify familial DNA of perpetrators when it comes to exoneration for those wrongfully accused. For a convict, every profile added to a database can change that an innocent person will not take the blame for someone else's crime. Unfortunately for the convicted, there are endless procedural barriers to using DNA databases to prove their innocence. There are restrictive state laws that limit post-conviction testing to specific crimes or to people who were coerced into a guilty plea. This restricted access would certainly cause feelings of hopelessness and anger for those wrongfully imprisoned. The article in the George Mason University Civil Rights Law Journal details the various hurdles faced by prisoners and suggests that since DNA databases have such a huge impact that it has been recognized as such a game changer, there should be an easier access to DNA databases. The wrongfully convicted are at such a significant disadvantage and unfair burden, it is so critical that DNA databases are expanded for use prior to conviction. In conclusion, restricted use of DNA databases results in wrongful convictions and can negatively impact innocent lives because cases are forced to rely on error-prone evidence. The expansion of DNA databases is viewed by those in the prison system as a trade-off for accountability. From this perspective, it is not just an investment in the truth, but an offer of hope that fewer innocent lives will be destroyed and justice will be restored.
While the DNA databases was once promoted as a breakthrough, a tool that can solve crimes, protect communities, and make society safer, recent events that have shown otherwise. Even the most powerful tech companies are vulnerable to massive data breaches. Many citizens value both security and privacy, and this tension has made the debate over the DNA databases increasingly urgent. When the information at risk is our genetic data, something personal and permanent, it is impossible to replace. The danger associated with the problem cannot be overlooked. The 23andMe breach is the perfect example of how vulnerable genetic data really is. Hackers accessed the personal information of 6.9 million users, including ancestry reports, DNA-related data, birth rates, and even location. Worse, the breach even went undetected for months. What makes this so alarming is that the hacker didn't need to break into the company's system directly. They got through a small number of accounts that reused their password, and because DNA profiles are linked to related, they were able to access millions of people who never did anything wrong. This shows a major problem. Once the DNA is stored in a large system, one weak link can expose everyone. If a private company with a strong resource can fail this badly, a massive government database would be an even bigger target. Another major issue is how easily DNA can be collected without our consent. Courts often rule that if you leave DNA behind, like saliva on sidewalk or a cup in a restaurant, you have to abandon it. That means the police or anyone can take it and test it without a warrant or your consent. There are also DNA darknets, where an entire community are registered to volunteer samples. And people often feel that they can't say no because refusing makes them look suspicious. And once the DNA is collected, it may be stored indefinitely, even if the person is never charged with a crime. So the problem isn't just hacking, it's the lack of meaningful legal protection. Citizens can lose control of their DNA without even realizing it. Supporters argue that they can help solve crime and exonerate the innocent with the DNA databases. And by all means, those benefits are real, but they ignoring the risk. Wrongful matches already happen, and the targeted database, like those for convicted offenders, already provide most of the investigative value. The reality is that expanding the database increases the chance of catastrophic breaches, and the 33andMe incident is shows how millions of people can be exposed through no fault of their own. Fernandez's study also showed that once the DNA collected, it can be used for purposes people never agreed to, including research or surveillance. So while the goals may sound good, the risks grow much faster than the benefits. When you look at the legal and technological landscape together, there's a message. We need to be extremely cautious about suspending the DNA databases. Current Fourth Amendment standards leave citizens vulnerable to warrantless collection. Private companies have already proven that even advanced systems can be hacked, and unlike password, DNA can be reset. Everyone should have the right to decide whether the genetic information is collected, stored, or shared. If that right disappears, it raises a bigger question. What other rights might follow? Until stronger laws and better security exist, expanding DNA databases is simply too dangerous for the public.